Hi, and welcome to the Common Sense Workouts podcast, where we offer common sense advice to help take the complexity out of reaching your fitness goals. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about. Actually, why don't you say, Hayden, what we're going to be talking about today?
So today we're gonna talk about stretching. When you want to stretch, do you need to stretch? We will talk about mobility, flexibility, and stability in training. What does that mean? How do they affect your training? Probably we're gonna talk about some small piece of recovery, and eventually gonna be why a lot of people doing the right thing and the pain still haunting them. Yeah.
And I don't know if this is necessary or not, but I guess we need to put a disclaimer about this is not medical advice.
No, absolutely no. It's not a medical advice. Yes,
This is just
just a bro podcast.
this is a podcast, and just these are just lessons that Hayden has learned as a personal trainer, and knowledge that he's hoping to share with people.
That's true.
But now that that's out of the way, stretching. So actually, we have some questions here. Let me pull it up. Actually, let's start off. Are there any questions specifically that your clients that you found commonly ask you when it comes to stretching, and we can use that as a starting point?
Oh yeah, for sure. The most often question I got asked is how to stretch a specific muscle. My hip flexor, my psoas, blah blah blah. And most of the time I reply with a question that like, what makes you think that you need to stretch that muscle? Right? And then it leads to a whole bunch of rabbit hole where people start to complain about like, oh, I have pain here and there, and I think my muscle here must be tight. When I move in this position, I feel pinching, and it leads me to think that like, so a lot of time my client really want to stretch just because they feel that they need to stretch, or they feel somewhere tight. Right? But we already talked about that in the few last episode, that a lot of time your brain is not that good as understanding what is happening with your body, right? It's completely rely on the feedback from the body to actually process what is going on, and sometimes it's wrong. It's wrong because of all the factors. You feed them the wrong information, you move in the wrong way, or it's just a trauma in the past, right? So it is important to really understand what is going on. Plus, again, relying on your feeling, both of them together, and to understand what stretch movement you need to do, why you need to do that, and how often you need to do that, or even like, do you even need to do that? And again, like, it's a stuff that like not everybody can do. That's why a lot of people going to the physiotherapist, going to the trainer to make sure that they understand correctly what is going on within their body. So that is the way I see a lot. That is the thing that happened a lot in the training day between me and my client, and that also make people kind of like overwhelmed with whatever is on YouTube. There's so much of stretching offer on YouTube. If you have this problem, let's do this, let's do that. And don't get me wrong, it's right. But the thing is, like, it might be right for the one that's doing it, but might not be right for the other one, because again, the brain is pretty bad at detecting what is going on, right? Yeah.
Because pain is just like, just having worked with you, I think I understand that pain is just a symptom, right? Pain isn't necessarily, even though you might feel, like you said, in the hip flexor, you might feel like it's tight there, doesn't necessarily mean that the problem is with your psoas, your or whatever hip flexor muscle. That
Exactly.
Right.
Absolutely, yes. Because like, even though you say that you have pain in the hip flexor, I can tell like there's a chance that like 50% is not gonna be on your hip flexor. The reason is because like there's so many muscle run across each other, and then once you feel pain somewhere, it can echo from the other place, right? So it's very difficult for you to just like, oh, I have pain around my hip, around my groin here. Must be my psoas, must be my hip flexor. Might be not. Might be it's just your lower back, and then it's lead all the way there.
Right.
Right. And even worse, sometimes it is come from your nerve getting irritated. And then it go even further, and you say, so for example, like I have one client who has pain and numbness, actually numbness on her toe, and she's like, oh, there must be something wrong with my ankle, but turns out it's not. It's something wrong with her lower back. Yeah, it compressed. Back. Yeah, it compressed the nerve, and
okay.
well, a bonus piece of that, if you have numbness on your toe, there must be something doing with the nerve that from the lower back, and it's actually pretty serious. You should see some physiotherapists. The further it goes away from the root, which is the spine, the worse it is. So say like if you feel some numbness, some pain, tingling in your finger, they high chance that there's something on your thoracic spine, nerve right here, right? And then it starts to go all the way down here. The further it goes, the worse it is. Yeah, but it's also one good indicator to tell whether you are getting better or not. So if the pain starts to move closer back to the root, right, you are getting better, even though it might feel worse because again, like pain here and pain there. Right. I will say most of the time I feel worse with the pain on my neck, on my hand. But yes, that's the sign of that you are getting better. Yeah,
that's good to know. Well, we have some more questions here. Let's see. So this is actually something that you mentioned before we started recording. I think people are always asking, what are the best stretches and exercises to improve flexibility? So this is sort of, I guess, following along that question you had, that you said clients ask you, like, how do I stretch this particular muscle? In this case, like, do people ask you, like, what are the best stretches, for, I guess, overall flexibility? Maybe I want to be able to bend over more.
Of course, people ask a lot about that, and most of the time I really love to hear again the same question that I asked them, which is like, what makes you think that you need to improve your flexibility, and even more specific, what movement you want to have and what position you want to get into. So flexibility means the ability the ability to flex the muscle. Basically, that's what it is. So flexibility and mobility are different. Both different terms. Mobility is the ability to move. Flexibility is the ability to flex. So a lot of time people think that like, I just need more flexibility and I will improve my mobility. Well, not really. So flexibility means you can move into one position passively or actively. Nobody cares about that. So for example, like you are laying on the bed and then you can just move your arm all the way over your head like this. That's flexibility. But now if you are carrying 100 pounds in your hand and you're trying to do shoulder press, right? Can you reach to that position or not? That's mobility, right? So mobility also including in the stability as well, right? And a lot of time people ask like, oh, how do I improve my flexibility? It's very interesting that when I ask them back, like, what makes you think you need more flexibility? They just say like, oh, I can move into this position. And I'm like, okay, so we talk about mobility. We're not talking about flexibility right here, right? Because sometimes when I do the assessment on them, they actually don't lack of flexibility. They're pretty flexible, but still they can't move it. They cannot move into that position they want. Now they have the flexibility, but they cannot move in there. What's wrong? Well, high chance they lack of stability, right? They're too pissed of it.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, so that's why when I put them on the ground, in the bed, or like on the table of stretching, and I move them into that position, they can move in there because they have the flexibility. But when they're standing on their feet, to move there, they need to stabilize that position as well, and their body just doesn't allow them to do so. And they lack a mobility, right? So it's very important to understand and also to ask yourself a question: why do I need this, right? Before you actually figure further, like what are the best stretches and exercises to improve flexibility. Also, one more thing is just like there's a certain range, also degree of the joint in the body that you don't really need to move above that. For example, like the hip flexor. right? You have 110, maximum 120 degree of hip flexor. So that means you can bring your knee up a little bit higher than your belly button. And that's about it. Now, if somebody can bring it further up, I will say that like they actually kind of like start to dump their whole pelvic floor and the spine into that position, right? So just for an example, so it's not generally flexibility, but it's more like a adaptation of the body into a certain range of motion. All right, so we see like all the martial artists, we see gymnasts, they can do all the split, they do the split and then they lean forward. Yeah, when I train karate, there was one time I can literally lean myself against the wall and then bring my whole feet from front back all the way to the wall. So it's not a genuine flexibility. It's not. It's basically that I tilt my whole hip posteriorly, so backward, in order for me to reach there, right? So, do you really need that in daily life? I don't think so, right? And is it really healthy for you? I also don't think so.
Oh yeah, okay.
Right, because you change the position of the body. You force your body into the very irregular position right over there, and you think that, oh, I have a lot of flexibility and a lot of mobility. Well, yes, you have a lot of flexibility. Maybe you don't have a lot of mobility in there, right? So yeah, it comes from a lot of factor. Do you really need it? Why do you need it? And what are you looking for? Yes.
Well, when it comes to, I'll take myself for example, like, with things like mobility and stability, like I honestly don't have like a very solid understanding of that, and like it's news to me. Like it's interesting the way you talked about how flexibility is like literally it's your ability to flex, which I did not think about before. But the relationship between flexibility, mobility, and stability, like you were saying, you might have a client who is saying they want to be more flexible, but they're actually plenty flexible, right? It's more about the mobility or their stability trying to get into the position that they want to be able to get into. So, like in that kind of case, where you have someone who has the flexibility but they lack the stability or the mobility, how do you go about, I guess it's strengthening your stability to be able to get like into that position, or like what is it exactly that you would change?
That's a very right approach.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just let them train in that position, and bias the stability factor, right? And like really get them into that position. Slow tempo training, get them through the full range of motion, right? But still, it also depends on what is the result come out of the assessment as well, right? Sometimes people are not ready for it. Sometimes they have like some hard restriction that doesn't allow them to go there, and then that really restricted them from getting to that position. So hence why it's restrict the mobility. So at that point, the first thing is that we need to know what part of the body are restricted and what part of the body is weak or unstable, right? And in order to do so, we need all the assessment, and even saying so, like the best way is to just keep trying to move into that position, right? With the right amount of load, right amount of tension. Try not to hurt yourself. I would say try not to do anything too early, too quickly, too much at the same time, and figure out what is the best way for you to get into that. But still, what I recommend is that work with somebody who really know their stuff, who really know the assessment, and can provide you the solid idea of what is going on inside your body. So you have the full picture of what should you do with each part of the body, right? So when we went back to that, we talk about like mobility and stress, somebody lack of stability, somebody lack of flexibility, right? It can happen. Lacking stability and lacking flexibility can happen both at the same time in one same person. So for example, like somebody who has very tight quad, right? Like lack of flexibility on the quad of the leg, high chance they're gonna have some laxation or some too much of flexibility on the hamstring, right? On the other side.
Right.
So that means stretching the hamstring gonna be the worst idea. That's gonna be the last thing they want to do, right? Because it's already very relaxed. And also strengthening, not, sorry, my bad, it's not strengthening, but also keep working, focusing only on the quad might be also not the best idea for them, right? And they need to do both. They need to stretch the quad, they need to strengthen the hamstring, specifically in the position where the hamstring stabilize the position where you want to, right? Say maybe because of that they cannot go all the way into the squat position, right? They always favor the quad dominance position and they always tip their heels up, right? It's important for them to actually understand how to get down there first
Yeah.
and then stabilize themselves there and keep stretching the quad until they feel better and feel more comfortable there. Right, so it's kind of like both approach there, and in order to do so, you really need to understand and know what is going on with each part of the body. And I would say like it's gonna be a whole process, and it's the best to reach out to somebody who knows.
Yeah, like something that you mentioned and that I had wanted to bring up when you were talking about stretching, because I think one of the common approaches that people take, and I like used to take this a lot too in my training, is that we focus on not just an area of the body, but one particular muscle, right? Like, so you're saying, like, for example, people who feel like their hips are tight, like their hip flexor is tight, so they want to stretch out their psoas. Like, even in bodybuilding, like, people are very focused on like, oh, I just want to focus, I just want to build my side delt, right? Not
Yeah,
even the whole delt, but I just want to build the side delt. I don't want to build the front delt. I want to isolate that. But from what you're saying, it's really more about understanding how all the different muscles work together, because like there's no real way to isolate. Well, I guess you could isolate, but it's not going to be beneficial, like you said, like flexibility in the quad, right? Like you need to, I guess, balance it out with like the hamstring and then any other muscles that are involved, with that specific movement.
for sure. Yes. All the muscle they all work together. So exactly like what you say, like most of the time it's very difficult to actually isolate anything on your body. Muscle doesn't really work on its own. So when we refer into the isolate exercise, it's more like of like we really favor that exercise. That muscle in the
Yeah,
exercise,
yeah.
right? But still, the other muscle gonna work as well. Like for example, like even dumbbell bicep curl, you think you just isolate your bicep, but not
Right.
really. You actually use your shoulder muscle to stabilize it, right? You actually use your tricep to stabilize it. Hence
Right.
why when you finish the bicep curl, you really feel the tricep, like tickling a little bit, right? So it's almost impossible to actually isolate anything, and that also give people a lot of idea of like like it's just you isolate it to for some reason. Slowly it will become the favorite muscle of the body, and then the body gonna start to go with that pattern of a movement more, right? I think it's quite contextual if we talk about that, whether you want to isolate some muscle or not, because it's it's about risk and reward, right? So if you are a bodybuilder and you're trying to roll your arm so you look better, and also you stand a chance to win the competition, right? I think there's nothing wrong with doing a little bit more, two more set bicep curl, or go a little bit heavier on the row. Right? There's nothing wrong about that. But for general population, then if you think about that, do they really need to be that much of detail in the training? I don't think so. I think it's the most important to understand again is that like why do you do something, right? Why do you want to have a specific muscle to be stronger? Why do you want to train this specific exercise? And how does it affect your life in the future? So, um, if you are able to answer that question, I think you're gonna have the answer on its own, like, and you're gonna know what to look for. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good point. It all really comes down to the end result that you're looking for, the goal that you have in mind, right?
yeah.
With your training. Since you mentioned about flexibility and mobility, stability, let's look at some I guess questions here. So you touched on this. What's the difference between mobility, um, and flexibility? So you were saying that mobility is well, has to do with movement. Flexibility has to do with your ability to flex. So what is that, I guess, relationship then, when it comes to training? Like, how does flexibility impact uh, mobility? You know, I know you talked about there might be restrictions in the way, but let's say if someone is flexible, like what impact does that have? Yeah, on their mobility.
Okay. So if somebody has, if somebody lack flexibility, it's just basically they can't move into that position,
Mm-hmm.
right? They can't flex. So the flexibility is basically passive range of motion.
Right.
Passive mean you are under no load, you in the safe position, and you just relax the muscle and it can move into that position.
Mm-hmm.
And if even in that safe environment, then you cannot move into that position, then that means there's a high chance, a very high chance that you cannot move into that position under the stress. Right? So flexibility being limited lead to limited mobility. For sure, for
Mm-hmm.
sure, it will happen. Now, given that like somebody has too much flexibility, there's that though. So they actually a test where I do on people to assess how flexible they are, and there's a lot of time people are much more flexible than they are needed, either because of their training background or because of some condition. If you have too much flexibility, then high chance you lack of stability, and then at that point, the muscle are more prone to injury because you move into a range of motion where you are not prepared for, right? And because you are so flexible, you have the tendency to move into that position no matter what, because it just feel comfortable and natural for you to move in there, right? But you are not prepared for it because you are not stable in that position. So there's a chance that like your body will have to get stability from somewhere else, right? And we all know that it called compensation.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And when you have enough compensation, it will lead to pain and injury, right? That's just about it. Now we talk about the stability. Stability is always more important. I would say
Okay.
more important. It's more like of like it doesn't really matter how much land you have, as long as you have enough control and you can protect the land. It's always better than having so much land that you cannot protect it, right? So I will always think of it as more like it's a safety path for me as a stability, and I will move into the range where I'm stable, not the range that I can move into there no matter what. And so most of the time I always kind of focus on stabilizing the joint, the movement first, and then based on that stable range of motion we will expand a little bit further if needed. Yeah, so that usually my approach into the mobility related to flexibility and stability.
That's a interesting. That stability is the most important thing, because like usually you hear like people will talk all sorts of things about like flexibility, right, and mobility. Stability is not one that you hear often. At
No.
least from what I like look at, like
Yeah.
not a lot of people talk about that. Oh, so like I do have one question about stabilizing or stabilizer muscles, right? Because you know, as a gym bro, people like talking, throwing these terms around, like, oh, you got to strengthen your stabilizers or whatever, and
Yeah.
an overhead shoulder press. But like,
Yeah.
how long is I was like, I don't know what the hell a stabilizer muscle is.
No, not at all.
So what when people are talking about stabilizers in a movement, like let's say a shoulder press, you know, what exactly are the stabilizer muscles?
Stabilizer muscle is the muscle. Well, literally what is called is the muscle that stabilizes the movement,
Right.
stabilize the joint in that position, right? And stabilizer can change. Depends on which position are you in.
Right.
Depends on which compensation do you have in your body as well, right? So when people talk about stabilizer, they basically trying to tell you that like you need to do something about that, but actually they are not giving you anything, right? It's so easy to say like, yeah, you need to strengthen your stabilizer, right? For example, like as your question is like, say, stabilizer in the shoulder press, right? There's so many muscle in that act like stabilizer,
Right.
you know, like the most common thing people say is gonna be the rotator cuff, right? That's the stabilizer of the shoulder. That's what they say, right? But it's just not about the shoulder itself. It's about the movement of scapula too, right? You're not gonna be able to reach over your head if you don't move your scapula. And then a lot of time we have people who have the scapula that literally stick into the rib cage. The muscle doesn't really release for the scapula to move out of sticking position. Hence why they are not acting as a stabilizer anymore, but they're acting as more like a restrictor of the movement. Now, if you want to move all over there, then you're gonna need to utilize some weight for the stabilizer, right? So at that point, it's gonna be like you're gonna start to use your hip as a stabilizer, like open your hip a little bit further, flare your rib cage, or push it all the way up, right? So strengthening stabilizer, I would say sometimes it helps if you lucky enough to do it correctly, and you target the right muscle and it's the right case for you. But most of the time it doesn't. Most of the time it's more complicated than that. It's more like restriction in the muscle that doesn't really allow the stabilizer to work as the stabilizer.
Is that a flexibility issue then?
No, it actually doesn't really relate to flexibility issue. It's more like the compensation that happened in the body.
Okay, I see.
Due to the asymmetry of the body, due to the position they spend a lot of time in, we are not symmetrical. One side of us, right side is heavier than the left side. Right side has more mass than the left side. So that's why we tend to lean more on the right side because it's more stable when we stand, and it leads to the body turn into a different way. And once you spend too much time in that position, you are so strong in that position, and it doesn't really allow you to get out of that position anymore, which makes sense because you are strong in that position. Why get out of that? Right. And then because of that, it further create more compensation for the body. The heavier stuff you do, the higher chance you're gonna develop kind of that thing. And then at that point, doing some flexibility doesn't really help, right? You really need to reverse what you are doing, reset it back to the baseline, and then build the strength in the right direction instead of compensated direction. Yeah, so it's a whole process, and it's just not only involved into stretching and improving the flexibility.
Okay. Well, on that note, then, how does improving flexibility, or how does flexibility training improve performance? Well, let's just say in everyday activities.
I would say make you feel more comfortable for sure.
Okay.
If you have the ability to get there, it's just like you really need to make sure that you are safe in that. Same, get back to the to the example of having a mass land, right? A massive land. You can go wherever you want, right? Because that's your own land, you own it. But if you don't really have the ability to protect yourself when you go really far away, then it might be risky. There might nothing happen. You just go there, you have fun, you come back home, you're good. But there's a chance that the bear there, right? You go there and it slaps the shit out of you, and then that's hurt, and then that's basically the injury, right? So improving flexibility is important, but also secure the range of motion that you already got is also even more important, right? And make sure that you move there with no worriness, right? It is really allow you to expand everything. So that's why training flexibility is great, but you need to make sure that you also have the ability to protect yourself in the new range of motion as well.
So when on YouTube, there's like all sorts of routines, flexibility, mobility routines that people post. Does doing those help with any, like, let's say I came across a random Athlete X video about flexibility. I don't know if he actually does these sorts of things, but and I was doing this. Is there, and obviously I know I'm leaving out a lot of factors here because like it could depend on what exactly is involved in a routine. But how would I gauge if it's beneficial to me? Like if I come across a video, how do I know that? What should I look for?
What should you look for? Good question. You should give it a try.
Okay.
Okay, it's always good to give it a try, with very cautious manner. Of course, you want to do it carefully.
Mm-hmm.
All right. See if you have any kind of improvement in your training. All right. I would say like any kind of flexibility that you hold in one position. I would say try it even like before the workout. People say that you might get weaker, but trust me, 95% of the population doesn't really need that. The small piece of
Right.
strength.
Yeah.
You're probably gonna be like 1% to 5% weaker, and you never reach there. Most of the time, you stay under 90%. So just do it whatever you want, right? Even right before the workout. And if you find it like first, it feel comfortable, right? So you feel a little bit of stretching. It's more like like 6 out of 10. It shouldn't cause you any pain, and it improves your range of motion. It improves your workout, right? You feel much more confident in to getting into a position. You feel that it allows you to train heavier. Then it's the right thing for you.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean it's gonna be right forever though.
Yeah.
There's a chance one day it doesn't work anymore. You just have to accept that, right? But here's some red flag for it. First thing first, if you stretch and you feel pain, right? It's not like you stretch into that and you feel the stretching a little like 6 out of 10, 5 out of 10 in terms of discomfort, but it's like 9 out of 10. It's just like, oh, I'm so restricted. Let me do it more often. I don't think so. I don't think so. All right, because the more pain you put on your body, the more stressful it will be, and then the more sensitized it will be.
Mm-hmm.
All right, it's completely not helpful. So if it's really painful, I would say out more than 7 out of 10 in terms of discomfort, it's not for you. That's the first thing. Second is it costs you too much time. I've seen a lot of people like stretching, preparing themselves for like 25 minutes before they get under the bar. Not worth it. Not worth it.
Yeah.
2 to 5 minutes,
Right.
the maximum, right? The whole warm up sequence. If you are not lifting something like your 1 rep max or anything like that, should be less than 15 minutes, including stretching, including flexibility work, stability work, mobility work. Work yourself up to the working weight. Should be up to 15 to 20 minutes. That's all. No longer than that.
Right.
So if your whole stretching routine takes you more than 10 minutes, ditch it.
Yeah.
Like you are doing too much for too little.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not worth it. And eventually it will be like, if you do it and it doesn't really help, then just don't do it, right? If it doesn't really change anything, then just ditch it. It's not the right thing for you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, it doesn't mean it's the wrong thing for the one that gave you the advice, but it's just not the right thing for you. That's all. Find something else.
Right.
Yeah.
So just try it out, and I guess it's like there's not much risk involved if you just
Yeah.
like give it a shot.
Exactly. Given that you stay between the behind the line,
Mm-hmm.
like no pushing into the pain, no ego in there. Oh, I'm so restricted, let me do it more often. Yeah, just don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Just really take it as something that you want to try it out, and trust me, like something that work for you. Even if you do it at 50% of capacity, it still works for you at a certain extent. It doesn't really need for you to push it to 100% for it to work. It usually just requires 50% capacity. So if it's right for you, try it out and just get a feeling out of it. It's already work.
Mm-hmm.
It already works enough for you to
Mm-hmm.
get better, and you should see it right away. Yeah.
When it comes to stretching, is there like I don't want to say like right or wrong way because I think that's too vague, but like are there certain cues or things to like even between let's say active and dynamic?
Mm-hmm.
Wait, no, not that. Sorry, static and dynamic stretching,
Right.
right?
Right.
Between the two, and then of course depending on like before or after your workout, are there some good tips to keep in mind when stretching?
Yes. So the first one is be gentle.
Okay.
Be gentle with that.
Be gentle.
You really want to be gentle with that, because the muscle when it's being stretched, it doesn't really want to be surprised with any kind of force, right?
Mm-hmm.
So be really gentle and do it very slowly, allow you to control the movement completely so you don't get surprised.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, when you stretch, you move your body in the position where it doesn't really move into there often. So give it give it time to understand what is going on is very important. So always be gentle with your body, right? Move slowly, move short position at a time. Keep it short, keep it gentle. And the second thing is that when you start to feel the stretch feeling, a little bit of pulling feeling, I would say, that way you should stop
Okay.
at that position. You shouldn't push further, right? Move into that position and move out of it and into that. We call that dynamic stretching, right?
Mm-hmm.
Move into that position and stay there and hold there for 30 seconds, 20 seconds, something like that. We call that static, right? That position is a position where you start to feel the effective. There will be a day when you get better and when you move into that position, you don't feel that anymore. You feel like it's very common. You feel very normal. You don't feel the stretching anymore. Then it allows you to move a little better. When you are feeling the stretching move up, feeling already, it's a position. Just don't move further than that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and eventually will be like, I would say, they keep the list of stretching exercise short. It's just not because like a lot of time. It's just not because like many things gonna be wrong for you. It's just like you really want to know what works for you.
Mm.
And if you have like 10 exercises in your list,
Right.
and you see it's better, what work and what not, right? So and again, if you don't really know what works, you're gonna have to go through the 10 exercise routine every time you train, right? And then gonna cost you 20 minutes to do so, two minutes each, right? Give or take, and it's too much time for anyone. So pick 2 to 3, do it often. If it works, keep it up. If it doesn't, change it up a little bit, right? So for me, I do one stretch per muscle, just one exercise for
Okay.
for one muscle, right? I have very tight quad, I have very tight calf, so I have one quad stretching, one calf stretching. If it works, I keep doing it. If it doesn't, I switch it, right? Keep it very very simple so you understand what is going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, being greedy about the amount of exercise that you do most of the time doesn't really help. Then there's a chance they may cancel each other as well.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's a chance that the effect of the exercise cancel each other. Doesn't mean both of them are bad for you or one are bad for you. It's just that like it cancel each other. That's all.
Cancel each other.
Yeah.
You mentioned how much you should stretch in terms of like the sensation or I guess the feeling. I have I might have a bad habit of trying to force the stretch a lot. Not necessarily by like exerting a lot of, well, maybe exerting a lot of force, but kind of like pushing myself to that limit
Mm-hmm.
where like I really, really feel the stretch. And I realized after training with clients that like not everyone likes, I guess, being pushed to that level.
No, no.
So I guess question for you is like, one, is that even like healthy, like, to like it's not painful for me
Mm-hmm.
necessarily. Like I just know like I can recognize that the not necessarily pain, but the feeling that I get is like it's just a really deep stretch.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Is that something that like is that bad practice? Is it bad to continue doing it if I just
Good question. So if you think about that, right? Everyone has a different level of tolerance.
Right.
So if you can get there with no pain and you really feel the deep stretch and you can get into that position gently,
mm-hmm.
right? I think you have no problem
Okay.
with that. But at the same time, a lot of people they are not used to it and they cannot get into that position. So think of it as take it as like one exercise, right? Think like say for example like for squat, right? If you are really really into the squat and then you do it like for 5 years already, it's okay for you to test your 1 rep max once or twice a year, right? And you really know that your 1 rep max, right? But some newcomer into the gym have never done squat before. It's not a very wise idea to get them to even like attempt like 3 rep max or 5 rep max, right? Let alone like 1 rep max, right? So at that point, if you even put like 60% on it, they already like, is my 1 rep max, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to respect that.
Right.
Absolutely, you have to respect that because again, even more important than the workout, and I mentioned like the stretching, you really want to be gentle with them, right? You don't really want to, grunting your face, really push your body into that position, because it's a irregular range of motion for the body, and you don't really know what is going on there, right? So if you really need to put too much effort into it, there's a chance the muscle gonna just protect itself by cramping it up. Keep holding it, and this doesn't really allow you to get there, right? And then once they feel uncomfortable, they terrified, it doesn't really work for them anymore. So that's why I use a sensation as one of the important indicator, because everybody has a different tolerance, and it takes time, and you need to work yourself there into that position, into that high level of tolerance, and also into the ability to actually correctly assessing the situation, right? How far are you, how bad are you feeling,
Right.
something like that. Yeah. So for you, I think there's no problem, but for someone who doesn't really do that often, they might find it a little bit too stressful for them.
Right, that's true. Because I guess like it's something that like I might now like today feel like okay, I can like get into this like stress position, but maybe 5 years back when I was first starting, like I probably don't remember what it was like back then, like and sort of what it felt. Um, yeah, that's a good point. All right, so what are some tips for improving flexibility and mobility in your fitness routine?
I would say the most important part of improving your mobility is that move into different position often.
Different positions often.
Yes, yes. Or in the other word, try to change your position often. Not even in your fitness routine, but like in your daily routine. Yeah. Don't spend too much time, too long a time period into one position. Your body gonna get used to it, and it's gonna be harder for them to get out of that position. So that's the first thing. Second thing will be like really train with a lot of compound movement if we're talking about the fitness routine, and respect the range of motion. Okay, because at the end of the day, again, if you don't really have the physiotherapist certification, you don't really understand the biomechanic of the body, it's just hard for you to tell what is tight, what is loosened, right? So the best way to maintain everything is that move into the position that you need to move into often, right? It's more like if you use it, you don't lose it, but if you don't use it, you lose it, right? So move in that position often mean you have to load it, you have to move in there with a good control and get out of it, right? So say for example, like to improve flexibility and mobility in squat, keep doing squat, keep sitting up. Even like say if you have a lot of weight on your back and you just go belly to parallel thigh, right? Like hip and knee at the same level. Keep doing that, but also don't forget to put the load off, and then sit all the way down to the ground, right? Sit your ass to the ground, really, really low. That's one of the reasons why we really have like a good hip mobility. When you see in the Eastern culture, where a lot of time we sit very low on the ground, very close to the ground, right? But in the Eastern culture, it's not a thing. It doesn't really a thing. When you actually grow up, you most of the time you spend your body in the chair, right? You sit on the chair, and then it's kind of like limited the range of motion lower there, right? You don't really get in that position anymore, and you lose it, right? So keep doing that, like really expose your body into the position where you want to, and then you should be okay. Now, if you are not having that range of motion, then it's good to start to do some stretching, some flexibility, some stability training to get you there, right? What gonna work for you is a very, very long process of trying and testing, right, to see what work for you. And the best bet gonna be seeing somebody who really knows the stuff.
Right. Yeah, because I guess what you're saying is that one, to change up the different positions that you, I guess, you're working out in or exercising in. But then also two, like if you want to improve that, to get, I guess, an expert or like a physiotherapist or someone like personal trainer, someone who's trained in that specific field to be able to help you through that process of
Yeah,
figuring out. Because I guess like that's at that point where it becomes very
exactly. Very
personalized. Yeah,
personalized.
yeah, yeah.
Yes, very personalized
Hmm.
for sure. Yeah, everybody has a different hurdle,
Right.
and it needs like very detailed assessment to see what are the hurdle to remove it.
And what your goals are.
Exactly.
Let's see what other questions we have here. Very similar. Well, let let me ask you in terms of flexibility, mobility, and stability. You said that stability is the most important. Then what comes second after that?
I would say mobility is the most important.
Oh,
Stability is tend to be more important than flexibility. Mobility is basically the ability to move, right? So this is the most important. It's the ultimate important thing that you want to have, right?
right.
Mobility. And then again, like most of the time people lack of stability, not flexibility. I would say look into that is a very good idea. Make sure that you fully control wherever you have.
I
Very
see.
good idea. And then after that you can expand where you want to go, which is the flexibility, right? And then use the method that already worked for you to achieve the stability you have in the old range for the new range. So that's kind of like the idea of how you want to structure it.
So mobility is important because like ultimately that's the
That's the
sort of the
thing.
end goal is like you
Yeah,
want to be able to move.
yeah,
Stability is the second most important because not a lot of people focus on stability. Is that like people have the flexibility but they don't have the stability to make use of the flexibility.
exactly. Think of it as like you are building a security team,
Okay.
right?
Security.
Like if you really want to protect your bank, better have a security team enough to cover the whole bank before you expand the bank,
Yeah.
right? Or expand the land of the whole, like the ship land or everything,
Yeah.
right? You really want to have the ability to control it, right? So the control is more important than what you actually have, because like that, sorry, than what you have passively, because that whatever you can control is what you actually have. Yeah, so stability is more important than flexibility in most case. And there again, like if the range of motion, the mobility is too small because it's being restricted by the flexibility, then at that point you really need to do a little bit of work with the flexibility first, right? For you to get into the regular range of motion, right? But it's rarely happen, man. It's interesting that it's rarely happen that somebody lack of flexibility, and it's also most very interesting in that like somebody who actually lack of flexibility, some stretching doesn't really help them though.
Mm.
Yeah. So for example, I have one client who got like 2 knee surgery,
Okay.
torn ACL, and then after the surgery, she goes through the rehab and everything, right? But she never got her right knee bent further than 60 degrees.
Oh.
So she's stuck there, right?
Yeah.
So that lack of flexibility, right? She can't even like passively she can't flex her knees to like further than 60 degrees. So that lack of flexibility, that's what we're talking about. And in her case, like no amount of stretching can help her to get to 90 degrees because it's just stuck there. It's already stuck there, right? So all the time that point is like my job actually like make sure that she doesn't lose more flexibility. Right? It change instead of like getting new range of motion there. It's more like make sure that she's safe in whatever range of motion she has, right? And because she also old, so it's very difficult to change as well, right? So yeah, so it's very interesting to when we talk about flexibility that like a lot of time when you lack of flexibility, it's very very difficult. And some mere stretching probably not gonna help you. You really need some kind of like very specialized help in order to get you there. Yeah, so that's why I say like a lot of time stability is more important.
In her case, what is it that is preventing her from gaining more flexibility?
Oh wow, that very interesting question. I don't know. I don't really know. But it's just that like when you think about that as a trainer, my job is just trying to keep people move in their capacity, right? So she has 6 months with her rehab already, right? And that only kind of get her like temporarily to 90 degrees merely, I would say. That kind of like graduate her from the rehab, but then slowly she start to lose it,
Oh.
right? And And again, she's went to the rehab again, trying to do that. And all the time, or what they do is kind of like they gently put her in that position. But I kind of like understand from what she's kind of like explain. It's more like if they put her in the passive position, which is the flexibility. So the flexibility can be nearly 90 degrees. But when she stopped doing the stuff that they are doing to her, she can't move there anymore. Yeah, I guess it can come from like so many things, like like the shorten of the structure in her knee because of the injury, because of the trauma from the surgery, maybe because like she has like very very thick layer of scar in the tissue, connective tissue, and then it doesn't really, well, you already know the scar doesn't really have that much of elasticity compared to the joint, sorry, the tendon and the muscle. So it's just stuck there. It's just like being like this. It doesn't really allow you to go there, right? Because it's a scar. It's not the connective issue itself. So maybe that one of the reason.
I see.
Yes, and in order to know what exactly is the cause, we really need to see the doctor, the physician, and the specialist in there. It's nothing that I can answer or speak intelligently on that.
Right.
So my best bet with her is basically trying to keep her to move in the capacity that she has, so she doesn't lose more. Yeah, that's the only thing that I can do for her. Yeah.
Okay. I know you had mentioned that you wanted to talk about recovery. Is that in regard to like flexibility and mobility and stability?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Like a lot of time, I have clients ask me the first question that we talk about.
Yeah.
What kind of what is the best exercise for me to stretch this one in and out?
Right, right.
Most of the time they answer because they are in pain.
Okay.
No one gonna ask that if they are not in pain or having some kind of discomfort.
Right.
If you move regularly, why do you ask that?
Yeah.
So also it leads to the case where a lot of time when people are doing the correct thing, the right thing, they still have pain, and that raises the question of like, so what actually make them feel stay in the pain, right? You doing the right amount of exercise, you doing the right amount of stretching, you doing the correct type of stretching, but you still have pain. What happened there? So it leads to the part of like other thing in the daily life, right? Yeah. Are you very stressful with your job? Are you having any change, like negative change in your life right now? Somebody might go through a divorce. Somebody might go through some family loss, right? Are you having like very very struggle time with eating, with sleeping, some kind of medication, depression, mental health, something like that, right? So that also something we talk about a lot in the recovery, because when we talk about recovery, it's not just about rest, nutrition, and sleep. It's more than that. It's the whole cup we talk about in the master class. It's the whole cup of everything it happened in your life. And a lot of time when you have that cup very full, doesn't really matter what you do physically, you still wanna have the pain flare up because it's just the stress. So example of my girlfriend, yeah, we talk about that in the master class as well, where she doesn't really have any much of a problem. She used to have the injury and then it traumatized her body. And but at that time, it's not about that injury anymore. It's already healed. It's about her being too stressful with everything. That really, really put the pressure on the nervous system. And then whatever kind of pain you used to have, right, is bring back up. So that's important to that's why it's important to keep it simple, keep everything simple. So you really have the full control over that, right? So say like if you having again 10 exercises in your stretching routine and 10 different exercises, then you don't really know what works, what doesn't, right? And mix that in the mixture of stress in the life, every other thing as well, training, pain, everything. It creates a whole mess. And that mess itself already create more stress for you, right? It's become a cycle of trying, not seeing any progression, try again, not seeing progression, more frustration, right? So the stretching right there, a lot of time when I get asked question, I kind of like start to expect like when I ask further, there will be some pain and discomfort there. right? It's just not merely because like, oh, I just think that I cannot get into this range of motion with the squat. It's more like I have pain when I do this movement, that movement. I feel really tired and uncomfortable in this motion. And we really need to look back into the recovery as well. Are you sleeping enough? Are you eating right? Are you managing your stress effectively? Are you having right coping skill? Right, all the things like that is like really affect a lot on the pain and all the performance as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, stress is a really, yeah. I guess you don't really think too much about all these other things that are going on, that could be like outside of the gym, that could be affecting your performance in the gym.
Mm-hmm.
That's because like you even mentioned, I forget what we were talking about. I think it was like flexibility or some kind of stretching, and how you said that, if you push yourself past a certain point, that'll induce, I guess, stress in your body, right? And then kind of condition your body to respond negatively when you try to.
Do that again.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely, it sensitize
yeah,
your
yeah.
body, of course. Yes. Yeah, it's really, your body is not fragile, but it also react to things very quickly and very unique way.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's always trying to make you feel more comfortable, and also it's trying to survive, right? So when you push your body into the position that it has to adapt quickly, it's gonna find the quickest way to adapt into it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically just like fight or flight reaction of the body, right? When you push your body in the position when you are very stressful, when you are very in a lot of discomfort, then your body gonna start to find a way to make you more comfortable, right? So it also can lead to some compensation as well. Might not be the genuine movement, but it's gonna be some compensation, and then slowly create another problem, and then more thing added in the mixture, and then more frustration. So it's important just to keep things very simple for you. You don't really know what is going on. Ask somebody who knows actually what's going on, right? And that itself already be like a journal of trying testing already. Not every physiotherapist is gonna work for you. They
Right.
have like different approach. They have a different point of view, and they also have. And when you come to them, they still, even though with all the testing and everything, they still having to try and test what work for you, right? So it's the already journal for you. So take it seriously instead of like think of it like you're gonna do everything all at once, right? Take one thing, but take it seriously,
Mm-hmm.
right? Keep it simple. Do it. That's all.
Uh, what about like stretching after your workout? Since we're talking about recovery,
Mm-hmm.
is it a like how big of a factor is that when it comes to recovery?
I think it feels good.
Yeah.
It feels good. So it's a big part of recovery already, right? It makes you feel good. Amazing. Keep
Right.
doing that. I
Yeah.
have no problem with it,
Okay.
right? I do some stretching after my workout as well because it feels really good,
Mm-hmm.
right? And this allow me to make sure it's I don't even think that I in my case it actually make a difference, but it's just like when I move into when I finish my workout and I move into that position again, and I'm like, oh yeah, I can still move into that position. It relieve a lot,
Right.
a lot in my mind, right? It takes
That's
a lot of
true.
burden away. I'm like, oh, I should do this one. Maybe I lost that range of motion already. Let me try it, right? So when I move in there and it's still there, I'm like, oh, it's still there. Amazing, right? So it's good. It's really good for you to do so. And also, like again, if you are being advised by anyone who understand the biomechanical or understand your body, right, that you should do some exercise like this, like that, you should do it. You should keep
Yeah.
doing it. Should follow the plan. So it gives the predictable feedback to you and to your physician or physiotherapist or to a trainer, right? So it's I will say it's necessary, but I will say that it's helpful. It's helpful if it actually show you some kind of value,
Mm-hmm.
both physically or mentally.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. Yeah, I do that all the time. Yeah, when I finish my workout, I just go upstairs, do some stretching, do some foam rolling, um, feel good, go home. You know, don't really think about that anymore. Basically,
Mm-hmm.
I take a burden out of my mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
I really want the workout, the exercising to be something that um, alleviate the stress in your life instead
Mm-hmm.
of putting another stress in your life,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? That's exactly what we want. So one one thing that we do a lot is that like me and my client, we tend to have like 5 minutes of we call that discussion, question and answer, but it's actually just like for them to kind of like move around a little bit, and then have a little bit chat so I can understand more about like what is going on with their life.
So, all right, we talked about recovery, stretching after training, and how that helps to, I guess, on a not just physically, but like a psychological level, like kind of just makes you feel better about the workout, right?
Yeah.
And being able to get into the position that you were in. So something that you had mentioned earlier in the podcast that you were going to touch on is how people are able to do, like, they can be doing all the right things, and they're still not able to see the results that they want. Like, for example, you were talking about pain just now. People are asking about like how they can stretch to get rid of pain. So how is it that someone might be doing all the things sort of quote unquote correctly, but they're still not able to get rid of their pain, or yeah, like what would you say?
I will say um it might be because they still have some big piece of traumatized in their body,
Mm-hmm.
where they kind of like maybe they haven't really allowed themselves to experience the range of motion that used to be painful before, so the body doesn't really get any feedback from that. Or maybe because they have like some real medical condition that like they really need help with from the physician or healthcare allies to actually, I would say, like treat it. So that's something that we can talk intelligently about, and also we cannot intervene into that. But also it could come from they are being in the pain for so long,
Mm.
like people with chronic pain being in the pain for so long, and then that pain will, well, worst scenario, it will never go away. I think it's good to actually look at it as a little bit different, to say it with a different type of word. So instead of like pain free life, I should say like more like a like pain no pain bothering free life, something like
Okay.
that. Like as long as it doesn't really bother you that much, and also like it doesn't stop you from doing things that you like, then I think it's quite acceptable for people that have pain for very long time, like really long chronic pain. Um, a lot of the time, when I talk about pain, I really need to give them a disclaimer that like there's a chance that the pain gonna be 1 to 2 out of 10 every day, and on the worst day it might go up to 4 out of 10. And if that's the case, there's nothing wrong about that. It's just that you might have like a bad day, you might have like too much work, you might have your boss yelling at you, you might have your cat just lost or something like that, and then it's really stressful on you, and then the pain come from like 1 out of 10 barely noticeable in a very few movement to like 4 out of 10 when you start to feel it lingering on you, and it's completely okay with that. And the best reaction to it will be will be like keeping yourself cool and calm, or try not to catastrophize it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of time people just freak out when they have a little pain, like, oh shit, fuck, I'm gonna be on my bed 7 days again. Well, if you freak out like that, they actually higher chance that you're gonna be in your bed 7 days again. So try to stay hopeful, try to stay active and positive about what happening to you, right? It might feel a little bit wrong today. It's okay. It's okay. It can be better tomorrow. Now again, there's a line for it. We don't want to cross the line, which is if the pain gets worse, like really, really bad, or it lasts longer than 72 hours and it keep being that bad, right? It's very wise idea to actually see a physician or physiotherapist. But if it's just like same pain, at lower level, it's okay. Just keep moving. Don't be afraid of that. Don't let it discourage you from stopping the movement. Don't let it keep you away from what you are doing currently. Just keep doing it, and most of the time it will be fine. Recently, actually, though, one also on the piece of advice is like, if you have enough experience, you might have a very good sense of what might cause the pain. So maybe take it out of the equation for 1 or 2 days might be a good idea. For example, like my hip recently, I've been training conventional deadlift again after like 6 months of doing sumo deadlift. And then there's a few more exercises that I added into that. And then last week actually had a little bit of pain in my hip, which is the pain that I used to have before, right? And to be honest with you, I don't really remember how I got out of that pain because it's been so long ago, so much long time ago already. What I do is like I kind of like zone it out to see like what actually caused the pain. I know it's actually come from the deadlift workout. I have like 5 exercises in the deadlift day. Two of them are irrelevant. So basically they are the core exercise. So most high chance they're not gonna be the one that cause the pain. So there's like zoning out like there are only 3 exercises, right? It's the deadlift, it's the split squat, and it's the kickstand squat. So what I did was I just stopped doing one thing at a time. So I stop doing the split squat. I only did deadlift and kickstand squat, and the pain go away. So I'm like, okay, so then now 2 situations. Maybe the split squat that caused me the pain, or maybe too much volume that caused me the pain, right? So in the next deadlift, which I'm about to do it next week, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna basically just reduce. We put the split squat back, do it very lightly, and see how it goes. If it's still pain, then I can just get rid of it. So that's how I do it. Most of the time, I like to kind of like zone it out a little bit to try to find like what is going on. Mm-hmm. Yeah, keep it simple so you have full control on it, mm-hmm. and make sure that you take care of yourself well, eat well, sleep well. Don't freak out. Stay positive, and then do things that you need to do. That's all. Yeah.
And one of the important takeaways that I had from what you just said is that like managing your expectations when it comes to like especially when you're dealing with pain, yes, right? Because it's not necessarily, I guess, realistic to say that like you're just going to be able to live pain free for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Right. Like I think pain is sort of like it's an inevitable thing, and I guess especially as you age, like it just becomes something that I think just working out, right? Like you're automatically going to put yourself in pain. Right?
Yeah.
That's sort of like the nature of training, and because of that, it's just it's unavoidable that you're going to experience pain eventually. It's just a matter of knowing how to manage it rather than trying to find a way to just get rid of it completely.
Exactly. Kind of like live with it and embrace it is also like a very good idea, right? Take it as a signal for you to stop doing something really bad for you in the future. It's more like a red light for you to show you that like you are moving into the I would say not danger zone, but it's more like a very risky zone, right? So for you to pay attention to it and make some action out of it instead of freak out and then stop everything all at once, right? So so pain is just a feeling, man. Like it's like when you are happy, when you are sad or something like that, and there's nothing wrong about that. It better make a use of it instead of being an enemy of it, right?
Right. Yeah. The way you think about it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Hayden, any final words of wisdom that you'd like to share with the audience before we sign off?
Find somebody who you know the stuff to work with.
Yeah.
That's gonna be the best thing you can do.
Yeah.
I know that I say that I started to work with a coach like in the last episode. Yeah, things going well.
Okay.
You know, like a lot of good advice. Remind me of like why do I train? And also it's kind of like a big burden of is being a big burden being taken away out of my mind. Having somebody like next to me and then like look over my training, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I would say like find yourself a partner or somebody who knows the stuff, and you wanna find the way you do it gonna be much easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks again as always, Hayden. And if you're listening, thanks for tuning in to the Common Sense Workouts podcast, and we'll catch you in the next episode. If you have any questions, feel free to send them to hello@commonsenseworkouts.com. Peace.
Thank you so much.